Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sex Advent Calendar, 25 days of sex education all through the month of December. I am so excited because I have my friend and colleague Kait Scalisi here with me, and she is a sex educator with a background in neuroscience and public health. She's so smart, and is the founder of passionbykait.com, which you should check out for more information about her teaching and her writing. She also lives with Crohn's disease and arthritis, and I'm really excited to have her talking a little bit about what the intersections of sex and illness can look like and how we can all live better, more vibrant sex lives, regardless of what's going on with our bodies.
So thank you so much for having me. I am so honored and excited to be here talking about this topic. My interest in it originally began when I was working with cancer survivors, and I had already been doing sex ed for a while and was able to answer their questions in depth. But more recently, it's really sprung out of the fact that I got diagnosed last year with both Crohn's and arthritis. And so figuring out for myself and then for my friends within these communities, how can we have intimate, exciting, and fulfilling sex lives despite whatever our bodies are doing and unpredictability of what that means day to day. And it was interesting. The very first IBD support group I went to, I had just gotten diagnosed. I was devastated and grieving and wrecked, and I was like, I just need support and community. And I got all of that, and I have this beautiful community now. But what I also was able to do was I ended up answering tons of their questions about sex and intimacy, and they were like, oh, tell us more. And so it was this really beautiful moment of going to kind of receive support, but then also giving, and in giving we receive and all that fun stuff. And it was just really a beautiful way and a beautiful connection. And those women continue to be some of my strongest supporters and friends. So what are those things that I talked with them about? The very first thing that when it comes to Crohn's in particular and chronic disease, really whatever's going on for you, is redefining what sex looks like for you, right? So we have this idea of sex and the way it's talked about in society and in the media and so on tends to be penis and vagina. And with Crohn's in particular, that may not always be possible. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. It could be pain, it could be fatigue, it could be fistulas, it could be an ostomy, it could be surgery. There's just a lot of reasons, but it may not always be possible. And you may just not always want it too. That's the other thing, right? Even if it's physically able, you may not just be in the mood for that, or that just may not be the type of sex you have, period. So redefining what sex looks like from whatever it was before your diagnoses, if they were diagnosed later in life, or redefining sex from what you think it's supposed to look like for you and in your relationship to a much broader definition. And can it be anything that brings you this kind of sexual and sensual pleasure, whether that is some sort of penetration, whether that is some sort of oral stimulation, whether that's just a good rub down or some sort of kink, right? There's just so many variations, but really it comes down to how can you maintain that physically intimate connection even when you're pooping 50 times a day or more and you're bloated and you feel awful, and maybe there's other things going on. Maybe there's decreased vaginal lubrication. Maybe you used to love anal sex and now you're all inflamed and like, it really is an exit only at that point. Like the only time you can say it is when that happens. So yeah, it's just really thinking about how can we redefine sex in a way that honors your physical limitations and whatever you and your body are going through, but also allows you to still have that physical connection with someone.
If it's not too personal to ask, do you have any examples from your own life about like a situation that got redefined for you?
Yeah. So when I first got diagnosed, it was hard for me to leave the house. So, my quality of life was severely diminished, and very few people saw that except for my partner because he was living with it. So for us, mutual masturbation was a lifesaver. So it's when for anyone who's not familiar with that term, it's when you are loving yourself and pleasuring yourself and you have a partner next to you doing the same thing. It's super intimate. It's super sexy. It gives you an idea of kind of how they touch themselves. So you can also give them more pleasure at a later point in time. And it also tends to be faster. So because we tend to, particularly experience climax more quickly when we're on our own than when we're with a partner, because we know exactly what to do and where to touch and how and so on and so forth. So it's just a really all around amazing experience that allows you both to experience pleasure and, again, that intimacy. And it's just hot. It's really hot. The thing with IBD is it's this taboo thing, right? It's poop. So, and it's so much more than poop too. It's your entire guts are inflamed and there are extra intestinal manifestations and whatnot, but it often manifests as you're pooping a lot, and you might feel gross and you might poop your pants or you might leak. It's not sexy. It doesn't feel sexy unless that's your thing. And then, maybe lucky you got paired up with someone and that worked out great for you. But even then, you're not feeling well because it's not really by choice that this is happening to you. There's nothing that you can do to just stop it on your own or make it just go away whenever you want. So finding ways, again, to kind of find comfort in touch, in addition, because physical intimacy, we tend to talk about it mostly with regards to the pleasure aspect and the orgasm aspect. But there's that comfort piece that, particularly when you're in the midst of a chronic illness and things are tough, can be just as sexy and connecting in a very different way, though. So the second thing that I always recommend to people, which I'm sure other speakers that you're chatting with will talk about, is really open and gentle communication. And this can be a challenge for something like IBD because, again, we're talking about poop. Now, some people talk about poop very openly. Many people, I would say, don't, even with a partner, even with a longer term partner, hell. So it's, how do you say to someone like, I am afraid to have sex with you because I'm worried we're going to shit the bed right now, literally, like, might be not the best. For some people, that is not going to be a turn on.
Definitely activates some people's like,
Yeah, right? It's going to make some people be like, oh, no thanks, I don't want that. So, but in addition to that, there's a self-talk too. So when I'm thinking about, open and gentle communication, it's with yourself first and foremost, and then also with whoever's happening. And this is where we see we talked about redefining sex, but seeing a redefining of how you talk about the bathroom time, really, and how you talk about those more personal times that maybe you didn't really share with whoever you're having sex with. And so it's being able to say to them like, hey, I don't feel well right now, and this is what's going on. So having that open, gentle communication with a partner is really great. And then with yourself, it's almost harder.
We're always hardest on ourselves. We talk about ourselves in ways that we would never talk about someone else.
Oh, and society just makes it so easy to beat ourselves up. And in fact, there is research showing that, particularly around body image, body kind of dissatisfaction is one of the top reasons why people get distracted during sex. And so when that's the case, it's how can we focus back into the pleasure, and how can we focus on sensation? So our brains like to go, 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 go. And that can be a challenge during sex because you're thinking about laundry and fights and school and work and blah, 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 blah. But if you can harness that and say, okay, I'm noticing my brain's all over the place. Like, okay, brain, like, hey, let's focus on what I'm seeing right now. And let's focus on what I'm feeling right now. And if you could ground that back into sensation, it's using that chatter that our brains just naturally like to have and harnessing it to actually help us experience more in the moment and experience more pleasure. And the other thing too, with being gentle with yourself is, learning to at least acknowledge, I'm not even going to go so far as to say love, but acknowledge whatever is going on, right? And so often the narrative is just love yourself, love your body, blah, blah, blah. And we're starting to see some pushback to that narrative of like, just accept it. And I would say step one, particularly if you're dealing with particularly with chronic illness, particularly if you've had surgery, major body changes, et cetera, you feel betrayed by your body. You don't feel like your body is yours anymore. You feel invaded. These are all things that I went through last year. You're grieving your loss of normalcy and what life used to be like. And it starts with really witnessing like what's even happening. And then you crawl and trudge your way to accepting it. And that's not a straight path. There's like this. And then maybe many of the girls in my support group are at the point where they're grateful for their IBD. I'm not there yet. I can see myself getting there in a very fashion, but I'm not there yet. I've gotten to the point where I accept it. but I'm definitely not loving.
And I mean, I imagine it's a lot like other experiences of disability or illness. And I know from my personal experience, it's not like I love having depression and anxiety all the time. A lot of times it's really terrible and it feels awful. But there are moments where I was like, I feel like this gives me insight and gives me community and other really beautiful things. And occasionally I can latch onto that and find love for small pieces of time.
Exactly. And then the third thing, again, you're probably going to hear this from other people too, but tools are your friend, right? So sex tools, sex toys are your friend. And in the case of inflammatory bowel disease, thinking the number one thing I recommend is a Liberator Throe. And it was hysterical the second I said it, and then everyone bought them and were like comparing their colors, like, oh, I got this color, what color did you get? And blah, 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 blah. And it's just really funny. But the Throw is this beautiful, lush, waterproof blanket that's meant to absorb all the fluids of sex, but it's also can be really helpful if you're worried about like smaller leaks, particularly when you experience climax, right? And so like that's a lot of pressure in the pelvic region, and so sometimes shit happens, and so it can be beneficial if you're worried about not ruining a bed or your towels or something, to just have this dedicated thing. It's machine washable. That's like my number one tool that I recommend. There's some really beautiful lingerie for ostomy, and there used to be like one company, and now there is like a whole bunch of companies that are directly marketing to this population of people with an ostomy who want to feel sexy and beautiful and have whatever relationship they have with their ostomy bag, and they want it to be a part of whatever's going on instead of something they hate. So there's ways to make it beautiful now.
That is amazing. I had no idea.
I have a couple of friends with ostomies who they're like, it just helps us to be able to have that experience of like buying lingerie and putting it on and feeling sexy for ourselves and our partner.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Kait, for sharing all of this insight. There's some wonderful like nuggets of wisdom here, and lots of good resources that I'll include links below so that you all can investigate further. So thank you so much for joining us, and to everyone watching at home, there are more videos coming, so stay tuned all through December for more sex ed. All right, thank you so much. Have a great night.